Welcome back to bookmas day 3. I need to compose myself. Welcome back to bookmas day 3. Today we're going to go over my least favorite to most favorite. The books I didn't like so much, the books I was okay with, and the books that I loved this year. Tell me you're a non-native English speaker without telling me you're a non-native English speaker. I'm going to quickly go over a few books that couldn't possibly fit into the actual list because I either reread them a lot, or it's a different vibe, or it just doesn't make sense in my chemically altered brain to put into that list. My brain is chemically altered by nothing, I just like saying that. We all know what I mean. We all know. I can't rank this. I like it and I hate it. I've read this way too many times, and I only started reading it after I knew the movie was coming. I'm a fake fan. And I've only ever read this one, and I'm considering reading Children of Dune. Maybe, but I got the message. I got the Frank Herbert message from this one. I cannot rank this. It's perfection. It's perfection. I can't rank it. I just have manga and children's books and middle grade books around me at all times because I read a lot of tortured poet kind of fiction. So I need this sometimes. Can't rank it. Alright, let's start the actual list. Why would you write this? And when I say this, I mean one story specifically. If you read this book, or if you know about Hemingway short stories, you know for sure which story I'm talking about. Why would you write it? And I know that it's one of his earlier stories, and it's part of that set of stories where some of them were lost. And I know it intrigues a lot of people because they want to know what kind of stories he wrote in the beginning, and if it's like this, I don't want to know anymore. If you know, you know. This is why also books should absolutely have trigger warnings, because if I knew that's what the story was about, probably wouldn't have read it. I didn't need that in my life. I don't need that in my life. Hemingway. Anyway, it was a reread for me. It's really cute. It's one of those middle grades that, honestly, I bought this in Cyprus because it cost me like €1, and then I read it, and I read it, and I read it, and I got to the end and I was like, oh, this is a good book. Damn. I initially started with Loveless, if you know, you know. And I was like, okay. And then I went to this, and a little bit more, okay. But it's still not it. I didn't love it. Which was a surprise because when I was living in Brussels, I went to a literary festival where Max Porter actually performed a passage from his book, Shy. So I bought this because this is supposed to be his masterpiece. Everyone loves this. And I bought it and I was like, I didn't love it. But I'm blaming my state of mind more than Max Porter because I saw him perform. He's excellent. So I'm giving it time, and I will probably reread it again eventually in the future and love it. Because I didn't this time. If you've read this book, you know why I'm laughing. Because why? Why on earth? Why, Ethan Hawke? Why? Why did you have to call it that name the whole book? Just call it what it is. Either use the anatomical name for that part, use the colloquial names for that part, but why did it have to be that word? I don't know if I can say it on YouTube. Like, I don't know if it's going to affect me, but the word that he used throughout the entire book to refer to his was brick with a P. Why? This is, like, it was a good book. It was a decent book. I enjoyed it. Why that word? I need to know. This is the one thing I need to know, Ethan Hawke. If ever anyone does anything for me on the internet, I want Ethan Hawke to respond. Why that word? It pissed me off. Every time I read it, it took me out of the story because why? Anyway, I really enjoy this. I didn't connect to every single poem, but her writing is excellent. And she's funny. This is one of the first instances that I've read poetry and said poetry was more like a comedy bit. Is really funny. The trumpet poem, I think it's a trumpet. Hilarious. And she's an excellent writer. The first time I read a poem by her was from an online publication. I was just reading stuff online from these online magazines who publish poetry because I also submit to these magazines. So I was reading some stuff and was great. And I bought this book and then I bought this book and I don't regret it. Everyone read Kim Moore. Kim Moore is great. Beyond the Door of No Return. This book broke my heart. This is for the people who read A Little Life and want to be in pain again. Intamacies by Kitamura. I think she's a professor at NYU because I was looking for creative writing MFAs. And I think she's one of the faculty there. This was amazing. This takes place, I think, in The Hague, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. It takes place in The Hague. And if you don't know, because I've never said it here before, how could you know? I worked for a few months at the European Union in one of the offices there. Do I want to say this? Whatever. I worked there and then I didn't and now I don't. And this book was just... It's not about the EU, it's about the International Criminal Court. But I mean, potato, I guess. Apart from the story and the character, specifically the main character that I could relate to on a gigantic level, the writing is amazing. Like, this is the thing with contemporary stories. A lot of the times the story is just okay. There's nothing extraordinary happening. There's no extraordinary devices being used. There's no greater plot twist. Like, those storytelling devices are not used, but the writing is out of this world. Like, I'm thinking of Katie Kitamura, I'm thinking of Avni Doshi, I'm thinking of Sally Rooney. The stories are okay, but the writing, like the thing that makes a Sally Rooney book good, I'm reading Normal People right now, is not particularly the story. The story is incredibly frustrating, but her writing is so damn good. And I didn't like Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, but I couldn't help read it because the writing was so good. And Katie Kitamura is the same. Good book, great story, but the writing. Yes, this is my first Shakespeare play, and yes, it is A Midsummer Night's Dream because of Dead Poets Society, so what? So what? And no one told me that Shakespeare was hella funny and sarcastic, and there's some parts, because I know that whenever it's like an historical figure, these days we always doubt, was it him? And I know that there's like conspiracy theories that say that it wasn't just one single person or he didn't write everything. I could see a woman writing this. Let me read you this passage. This is Hermia. I don't remember the entire play, but she's like promising to Lysander that she's gonna love him forever or something like that. And she says this. Like, she's saying a bunch of promises. I swear by this and by that and by that and my mother's grave and whatever. And she says this. By all the vows that ever men have broke, in number more than ever women spoke. This is written by a woman. Like, if ever you would use an argument to say anything against William Shakespeare writing his plays, this is a good one. Because, yes, men do break vows more than women even freaking speak them. So, safe to say I loved it. And I laugh a lot. I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh reading Shakespeare because I don't know that I'm smart enough to understand Shakespeare, but I laughed a lot. The Once Upon a Time in Hollywood book, listen, I had to read it. And you know what? It made the movie better. It did. It's all detail. This is all detail. You read the book and it's the film with detail. That's it. It's all detail and background and some additions. And honestly, he's a good writer. Like, he's a good writer. I don't really like him very much, but he's a good writer. And I'm happy I read it. I'm not happy that I paid money for this. And I felt a little guilty after I found out where he lives. But it was a good book. Now we are getting into, oh my god, territory. 4 Treasures of the Sky. Guys, if you read A Little Life and you wanted to suffer further, but without the accusations of, well, I can't say the words, but you know what the book is accused of being. A specific kind of, well, I'm not gonna say it, whatever. You know, if you know, you know. If you don't know, search it. 4 Treasures of the Sky. I'm pretty sure the author saw like the structure of the life of Jude, and she was like, oh, I'm gonna do it better. This is A Little Life, but worse. So much worse. There is no possible accusation of this being torture. It isn't. It's just an extraordinary story that I truly believe is true to the real life events that inspired it. This is excruciating to read, but you can't stop. I think the only critique I would make to this book is that it gets a little bit slow. But the reason why it gets slow at some point, it's so brilliant, you cannot help but appreciate it. Because you guys know that idea that is often discussed when you are raised in an abusive family, or you are raised in an abusive environment, or you are accustomed to being treated really badly, and your brain is just always on survival mode. It's always looking out for the next stressful event, and there's always that adrenaline going and whatever. That when you finally get to a point in your life where you are okay, where you are at peace, you just feel bored. Because your brain is wired to be always like surviving, always surviving. And at one point in this book, we get to a peaceful moment, a peaceful time period, and I was bored. The way that this book can simulate this in your brain while you're reading it, that you're always expecting more, and then you get to a point where it's kind of okay, and you're like, where is the more? Where is the stress? Brilliant writing, brilliant storytelling. She's Jenny Tinghui Zhang. Gonna go places. I'm so sorry I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But yeah, if you love The Little Life, you're going to devour this. I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to devour it. Is there anyone like her? And listen, a big part of this list, when we're getting to the books that I love this year, they are weird. They are weird. Life Ceremony by Sayaka Murata is a collection of very strange short stories, but very enlightening short stories, because you're reading this and you're like, doesn't she have a point? Don't we all live constrained by the way we were raised to think about the world? And it's just, with certain events that are going on in the world right now, I'm imagining what it's going to be like 50 years in the future, when I'm halfway to my grave. And I feel like she has a big point with this book. I feel like she has a point that when we are older, will we even be able to recognize the world we are in? Diary of a Film, Niven Goviden. I'm not saying that name well. This was beautiful. Like, if you're looking for something to read after Call Me By Your Name, either the book or the film, this is the thing you want to read. It's about a director and his 2 actors when they're going to a film festival in Italy. Just him musing on life, the world, and everything. There's really no way to explain it. It's the kind of story that you would get from the Before trilogy, Call Me By Your Name, The Collector, stuff like that. So if you like those stories, read this, please. I went insane reading this book. Because the writing is that freaking good. That it truly drives you insane and you feel what Samantha is feeling. Listen, this book was so good that I'm going to do like a solo review for it, explaining my thoughts and my reading experience, because it was genuinely excellent. I know I say the word excellent a lot, but it was. It was. And I went into reading this thinking it was going to be like a silly little YA book. It was amazing. Like, I saw Margaret Atwood's like little blurb, "Oh Bunny, you are so genius," and I thought, that's a family connection right there, but no. Bunny be genius. And then I went online and I searched, and apparently she's Margaret Atwood's, what did you say, heir apparent? And I mean, I believe it. I believe it. And I'm going to read everything she's ever published. What else? Okay, second to last. Did anyone else read this book? Because I just went to the bookstore one day, it was there, I picked it up, I didn't like it, I put it back down, I went to the bookstore a month later, I picked it up, I enjoyed it, and then I read it in 2 days. André Aciman. The man of my heart, apparently, and I have another book of him to read. You are swept away by this book. You live in it and you can't put it down. Like, if you need a short read to get you out of a reading slump, I got you. André has you. This is it. Look no further. This is it. I think it would be considered magical realism. You don't think so in the beginning. In the beginning, you read this story, you start reading what's happening, and you think, oh, I think I know what's going to happen. I can pretty much see where this is going. I know who this man is. And then, no, you don't. No, you cannot see where it's going. You couldn't possibly. And then somehow, like 200 pages later, you're crying. And that's it. Go read it. And now, the beast of all beasts, my most favorite book of the year so far, and probably until the end of the year because it's only a month left. The Turn of the Screw. I read this entire book out loud. Yeah, it's so good. I I think this is the inspiration for The Haunting of Bly Manor, right? The TV show. I haven't confirmed that, but in my mind it is, because the manor in this book is called Bly Manor, so I'm assuming this is the inspiration, and if it is, which probably is, which I won't check, but I will still watch the TV show. How did a Harry James book turn out to be my most favorite book of the year? I don't know. I seem to always go back to these old-timey books, because the first book I ever read that was like, really grabbed me at my soul, was not an old book, but it was written by an old man. So it's no surprise that I always find myself returning to the classics. And also they are classics because they withstood the test of time. So of course I love them. And yeah, if you think that my list of books I read this year and books I love this year is very mismatched and random and a little bit strange, that's me to a T. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you eventually. I will never shut up about books, so it's inevitable. Basically, my presence is a threat. Goodbye, sweet little petals.